Welcome to the Homestand Sports Podcast. I'm Albert Vartanian. On the pod today, I have Andrew Zuber, a.k.a. the Zoobs, jumping on the show with me. We talked all things Toronto Blue Jays and previewed their massive series, the biggest one of the season so far, against the Texas Rangers. It's a 4-game set in Toronto at the Rogers Center. And by the way, if you don't know the Zoobs, he's been covering the Jays for a long time and is completely tapped in to what's going on with that organization. So he's a great guy to have on the podcast today. He also hosts a really good podcast himself. It's called Less Than Jays. So make sure you go check that one out. We get into the Jays' successful 15-game stretch in which they went 10-5. Why I think David Schneider and the rest of the Buffalo Cubs can be considered MVPs of the season. And yeah, I truly believe that. And how Toronto's been there, guys, can separate themselves from the rest of the pack. After that chat, Shawn McCormick will join me to make sense of Week 1 in the NFL and look ahead to tonight's Monday nighter between the Bills and the Jets. I love the Jets in this game for so many reasons. I mean, you got revived Rodgers, his bromance with Garrett Wilson that should bring together one hell of a 1-2 punch, the return of running back Breece Hall, and that backfield that now includes Dalvin Cook. Lots to like about New York. Plus, the game is happening on September 11th in New York. The Jets will have a whole pregame thing honoring the victims and families. It'll definitely be an emotional night, no doubt. And I think the Jets will really feed off that, especially their head coach, Robert Saleh, who has ties to the tragic events of 9/11. I shared that story with Shawn during our conversation, so stay tuned for that. I'm Albert Vartanian, and you're listening to the Homestand Sports Podcast. And there he is, the Zoobs. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm feeling good. The most wonderful time of the year is upon us, finally.
It really is, and it's because it's September baseball, and the vibes are good around the Toronto Blue Jays, and this is why I wanted to bring you on. Obviously, we'll talk about, the biggest series of the season coming up against the Texas Rangers, maybe the biggest series since the Seattle series?
Oh, yeah. No question. No, this is it. This is the season in 4 games. This is it.
And listen, that 15-game stretch didn't start off so hot against the Guardians, and people were thinking, I don't know, man. I mean, they got to play better against these teams. They end up finishing 10-5, softest stretch of the schedule. Kevin Kiermaier saying he loves where the Blue Jays are at right now. Do you agree with Kiermaier? Are you on the same page?
Yeah, I think I do. When you look at listen, it's been 6 months. It's been 140 games. We know who they are. And I think if you're looking for positivity, if you're looking to be on Kevin Kiermaier's level, there's plenty of reason to do that. You're able to divide things into big picture, small picture. And the big picture is that the over the long term things is they pitch very well, they defend very well, and they run the bases okay.
Yeah.
The thing they aren't doing well was timely hitting, right? And that's one thing that isn't a big picture thing, that isn't a over the long term sort of thing. As evidenced, you pick any series, one day they're 5 for 6 with runners in scoring position, one day they're very low. They had a long stretch of bad luck in that situation. But if the only thing they need to do better is situational hitting, that is the one, if you had to pick one, that's the one thing that isn't really informed by a large sample size. So if you're looking for optimism, I think you have plenty to pick from right now if you're a Blue Jays fan.
Now listen, I get it. They're playing a lot of bad teams during that stretch. And I hear some Jays fans even unhappy with the 10-5 in 15 games, expecting, just nonstop sweeps, which just doesn't happen. I mean, that sweep against the Royals was the first one dating back to when Babe Schneider went off against the Red Sox, right? It's been a while since they've done that. I think, 10-5 in a 15-game run at this part of the season, I think shows a lot of character in this Blue Jays team.
The dirty secret is they're all bad teams. There's 2 good teams in all of baseball. It's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, your point is made. I mean, the Jays haven't had like a 7-game winning streak at any point this season, and the Oakland A's have. Baseball is very strange. There's a lot of games, a lot of things happen. There's basically no rhyme or reason. Remember the beginning of the year, the Pittsburgh Pirates were like 22-5 to start the season. These things happen. Bad teams play well, good teams play poorly. That's why they play every day for 7 months in a row.
You remember when the Texas Rangers are really good and the best offense in baseball pretty much, and now they're not that at all. Things do change.
Exactly right.
There's so many things I want to touch on. I want to go with some individual players. Kevin Kiermaier, 33 years old, hitting out a 9-hole is, the guy's been so good. Hits a big home run, cuts a promo yesterday in front of Jays fans. I think he's been everything the Jays wanted and then some. He's kind of having a career-ish type of year as well. I mean, when I look at this Jays team now, him included, they have a lot more, I would say, like, been there guys. Him, Springer, Brandon Belt, which is huge around this time. But being able to get that type of bat from, down in the order, plus the defense of one of the best outfielders in the league, I mean, it's been such a fantastic signing by the Toronto Blue Jays.
I remember early in the year coming on this very show, and he was off to such a hot start, and it was like, are fans going to stick around if he doesn't hit this well the whole year? And I think his value, and we have seen it play out over the course of the year, his value isn't so much even in the hitting, it's that he contributes to games even when he's not hitting. He is a positive guy even when he's not hitting 300, and that is sort of borne out over the course of the year. He had some cold spells, but anytime a fly ball is hit to center field, it's going to get caught. Unless it's over the fence, there's no hold your breath, the ball got hit to right center. There's no, oh, that's hitting the gap, they're in trouble. They've had Varsho as well has been like the best defensive outfielder in the league, in a league where Kevin Kiermaier isn't playing center field, and they have both of those guys. So yeah, I agree totally. And in terms of the been there, done that guys, I think when you have Vladdy and Bo as your core pieces, there's sort of this idea that they're a young team, when in reality, as you mentioned, they're sort of not, right? You have Belt, you have Kiermaier, you have all the pitching staff, all the key pitchers are 30 and over. You have Springer, you have, Chapman, for lack of a better sort of guy to point out. There's a lot of veteran guys on this team that have been down this road more than one time. So again, if you're looking for positivity, some key members of this team really do know what it takes to get it done this time of year, and they're guys who that skill set is what they're bringing forward.
If there's one guy in this Blue Jays, let's go in the Blue Jays lineup, that you absolutely cannot replace at this time in the season, who would that be?
I think it's probably still Bo Bichette. We saw like they pieced it together when he was out. They got it done with Ernie Clement, and they got it done with the Babe, and they got it done with Spencer Horwitz. You don't want to have to be doing that. And I think they were very cautious with him this weekend. He had days off, and he's going to DH, and they are going to get him right up to the toes on the line as to what he can do for them. But you see, when he is cooking, when he is going, it makes it a little bit easier on everybody else, and you get a chance for those Buffalo guys to make an impact in the bottom part of the lineup. So I really do think it is Bo. We spent so much of this year, the complaint was like, yeah, they're playing great defensively, but they can't hit at all. And then when Bo was out, when Chapman was out, that left side of the infield, they were very clearly sacrificing defense for offense, and it worked. But you don't want to have to walk that razor wire when the games are as high-strung and as important as they are. So I really do think it is Bichette. Right now, he is the engine. He is the guy that makes it all go. And he is, when you need a good at-bat, when you need a guy in a big spot, he's the dude you're turning to. This
might be an overreaction, a hot take for sure, but I think you can make the case that the Buffalo boys have been the MVPs of the season for the Toronto Blue Jays, because they had to survive some serious injuries. You know what I mean? Listen, maybe that just goes. Maybe it's just David Schneider. Maybe it's not even Ernie Clement, Spencer Horwitz, who've been pretty good, but David Schneider's been fantastic. The Jays they really could have folded, losing Bichette, Chapman, and now Danny Jansen, and they didn't, and they're in a wild card spot, game and a half up on the Texas Rangers, and a chance to really solidify their spot in this series against Texas, and a lot of that falls on, I think, those Buffalo players for coming in and doing a job.
It's so funny. I think I do agree with you in a way, in that, like, they didn't build them up to get them to the place they were. But as you said, when they stepped into the lineup, that was a really pivotal stretch where they could have fallen out. They could have been 2 games back. There's a lot of things that could have happened, and they ended up, pulling it off. And a thing that myself and a lot of other Blue Jays fans harped on for a lot of this year when things weren't going well, it was, where's the depth? They have no fourth outfielder. They have no bench bats. And then it turns out they do. They have a lot of guys that are David Schneider is a non-prospect. He was a maybe 17th in the Jays system alone, which is a bottom third of the league system. Spencer Horwitz, a guy that has the hit tool, but is he really going to make the leap up? Ernie Clement is a 27-year-old guy that has never had a full-time position in the major league. These are guys that you don't build your prospect system rankings out of, but they can contribute and they can do specific things. Maybe they're not the most complete players in the way that you want your major league everyday guys to be, but you're absolutely right. They needed a boost. They needed exactly what they got out of those guys, and it could not have come at a more opportune time, and is, again, reason for optimism, because a couple of them are going to stick around no matter who gets back healthy.
Yeah, and Bichette goes down, you just assume that this lineup is going to falter, and it shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be that way based on some of the players that they do have. Which I want to talk about George Springer, but let's go towards Vladdy Guerrero. maybe one of the most frustrating Blue Jay players for Jays fans right now, and everyone calling for his head at certain times. I mean, he's hitting the ball a lot better. He's hitting it hard. He's obviously an elite player in baseball. But where are you at with Vladdy and the Blue Jays right now?
Some positive signs. I mean, it was one of those puzzles where you saw a dozen different people offering up a dozen different problems. Ultimately, it come down to two things. He wasn't hitting the fastball the way that he was previously, and pitch selection. We saw it in the last week, some truly brutal swings, some truly brutal pitch selection. But when he's locked in, when he's punishing fastball, he's a great hitter. It sort of is just that simple, and you don't want to reduce it so much to like, there was huge stretches this year where if they had 2021 Vlad, they probably win a bunch of games, but they were in a lot of tight games. They were in a lot of games where one hit would have made a difference, and he ended up hitting into a lot of double plays and having a lot of struggles. I think, famously in the last couple of weeks, he had the call out for not hustling out doubles, for not hustling out ground balls. And I think similar to what we saw in the past with like a Teoscar Hernandez, sometimes these guys do need that little, hey, you're our guy. You need to be the dude that leads this. If we're winning, it's because Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is playing well. And I think, he can get a little carried away in trying to almost do too much and trying to hit everything and trying to be a little bit like his father and hit the ball off the top of his shoe over the fence. His strength is in great pitch selection, in really controlling the zone and really punishing mistakes. And getting back to that, it can just be that simple. You don't really need him to do everything. You just need him to do a little bit of damage. And I think he is capable of that. I think, it mostly seems like it's a mental thing versus a physical thing, because the ball is still coming off the bat very hard. He's still hitting it, consistently with tons of exit velo. He just needs to make sure he's hitting the right pitches. And when he does get the right pitches, doing the damage. There's been a few too many real cookie fastballs that get grounded out to second base. So turning that around, I think, is really a key to success.
Yeah, every time I see him swing at something out of the zone, I think of that A&W commercial with him and his dad, where his dad's like, I'd hit that, and the ball bounces in front of the plate. I'm like, I wonder if he actually thinks that way. Like, I got to hit everything like my dad does. That's such a great point that I never thought of.
It'd be hard not to, man. It would be hard not to.
I love Vladdy. Okay, on to George Springer. I mean, yesterday Kevin Kiermaier said in his post-game interviews, he goes, some guys just love playing around this time. George Springer said the exact same thing, and I feel like George Springer is that guy. He tends to turn it up. I was going over some of his stats, and over the last 30, he's been phenomenal. hitting over 300 home runs, stealing bases. He's doing everything that the Jays need him to do. World Series guy, as we know. I pose that question to you, who do you not take out of the lineup, and who would hurt the lineup the most? And you can't argue with Bichette, but I think Springer is right there.
Yeah, I remember last year around this time, sort of the same conversation, who's the most important Blue Jay, and I argued strongly that it was Springer, that top of the lineup presence, that he was playing center field at the time. That guy was sort of the real table setter and the guy that really gets it going. You're absolutely right. Throughout the month of August into the beginning of September, he has been the George Springer that signed the big contract. He has been the guy that they need him to be and want him to be. And, this happens 3 years in a row now with this team. A little bit of a reminder that, like, June and July, not that they're not important, but they're not that important. Mm-hmm. You can sort of cruise a little bit. I think as fans, we get a little bit like we are watching every single game so intently that every mistake, every slow run, every slump feels a little pronounced. They should be better than they are. That's not wrong. But I think George is a great example of a guy of, like, let's not judge the 2023 season until he's done his season, and he stayed healthy. He's battled through a lot. He's made some great plays in the outfield, and it looks like the bat's coming around. And in terms of guys that you would pick to have hot Septembers and Octobers, George Springer is right there at the top of the list. It makes a huge difference, especially if he's leading off, and especially if you have Bichette back, and especially if Vlad is a shell of himself. Boy, that's a recipe for some trouble.
It really is. And they need Springer and Bichette and Vladdy. They need the most of them in this series coming up against the Texas Rangers, who are struggling. Listen, they won their last two against Oakland, lost 16 of their last 22 since mid-August. Starting pitching isn't great. I mean, the pitchers have come out. So the Jays are going to see Dunning, Scherzer, Montgomery, and Eovaldi. Scherzer's coming off maybe one of the worst starts this season, maybe in his career. Eovaldi seems to be on some sort of pitch count at the moment. He can't get past 2.5 innings, or at least 3 innings. It's strange. I mean, I would give the edge in starting rotations to the Toronto Blue Jays, but if there is ever a time for the Rangers to turn it around with the players that they have, specifically in that rotation, it's probably right now.
Sure, absolutely. And Marcus Semion's been red hot in the second half. He's been really good. It's of course, right. The Rangers are not only are they the classic rebutted rivalry, but there is a bunch of guys that are sort of a bit of a lesson, right? The fans wanted the Jays to go out and get a bunch of these guys. You load up at the deadline, you go get pitching, you go get Jordan Montgomery, you go get Max Scherzer, you got Grossman in the offseason, you re-signed Semien to the big contract. There's all these things that are little crossroads with the Jays, and you're sort of looking at it and you go, well, other than Semien and Seager, most of this is probably fine. I mean, you say Kikuchi as your sort of barrier, is how many of these guys have worse numbers than Kikuchi, and the answer is pretty much all of them. Sort of they've done a good job in that way. Yeah, it's going to be a matter of which one of these teams either turns around or stays on the course they have been on. The Jays hitting has been pretty darn hot in the last little bit. That 15-game stretch, they scored more than 5 runs a ton of times during that. Again, it's bad pitching, but again, a lot of pitchers are bad, and that just sort of is the way that it goes. So there's reason for optimism, there's reason for caution, there's reason for pessimism. It's going to be a really good series, and this is October baseball being played in September. It's pretty sick, and a win in this series is more or less locking up a spot.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what the Jays, I feel like, they need to think heading into this series. They can bury the Rangers here, completely knock them out, and pretty much solidify their spot in the playoffs. So your true expectations for this series, do you see a split? Do you see a sweep either way? Or are the Jays going to take care of business here?
It's so tough. This is one of those ones where in the afternoon it's very easy to see, and then where it's the first inning and there's runners on and you're like, oh no, are they going to do this thing where they don't score at all for 3 games? I think conservatively calling this a 3-1 split for the Jays, I think, is a big victory that probably gets their percentage of playoff over 90%, because of course basically, right, it's 2 of Seattle, Texas, and Toronto are going to the playoffs, and Seattle and Texas play each other 6 times in their last 9 games. So if they can knock one of those 2 teams out of this, that's a great opportunity to do it. I think 3 of 4 against Texas, with the way that both of these teams are playing, with it being in Toronto, with the history between these 2 teams, I think I like the Blue Jays here to walk out of this. And really, those guys that you mentioned, those been there before guys, the key members of the lineup, I think this is time to really show what they're made of.
Absolutely. And listen, the Jays, they just came off an important stretch, but they're going into another one. I mean, to the end of the season, it's no cakewalk. You got 6 against Tampa, obviously 4 against Texas, 3 against Boston, and then 6 against the Yankees. And the Yankees are such a strange team, a team that gets no hit until, the 10th inning and ends up winning the game against the Brewers. But the Jays have struggled against the AL East. I don't want to look too far past this Rangers series, but there's some serious baseball that's ahead of them past that series.
And the Tampa, you mentioned it is sneaky important, because that is almost certainly going to be the playoff matchup if they get in. Right. If they get in the playoffs, they're probably going to be WC2. WC2 is 2 or 3 games in Tropicana Field. Nobody likes that. Nobody wants to do that. But that's life. So it'll be very instructive to see, how that shapes up, what Tampa does if they go with, Tampa's so notoriously sneaky. Are they going to give them the look of what the lineups will look like, who the pitchers will be? The Jays are going to have to win a lot of games down the stretch here. They're not going to have the luxury of sort of playing possum or being strategic about it. So yeah, you're right. There's a lot of important games left. Taking care of business against a limping Yankees team would be very important as well. But it all does start this beginning of this week with Texas for sure.
Yes, it starts with the Rangers. I can't wait for this series. Starts tonight, Monday, September 11th. Looking forward to that. Are you going to any of the games?
I'm stuck on fathering duty, but I'll be locked in on the couch. You can guarantee that.
Yeah, I bet. Zoobs, you're the best, man. Thank you for doing this.
Al, anytime, brother.
All right, welcome back. Big shout out to Andrew Zuber, a.k.a. the Zoobs, for coming on, talking Blue Jays. Love that guy. He'll be on more often, definitely, especially if the Blue Jays make the playoffs, which we both think that they should. Shawn McCormick, who now joins me, I'm not sure if he feels the exact same way. We're not really going to get into baseball.
Okay.
But this massive series against the Rangers, me and Zoobs compared it to maybe the biggest series since the Mariners series in the wild card last year. Do they take it down? Do they... Essentially, winning this series, you bury the Texas Rangers, and you almost lock up a spot in the wild card.
It pretty much ensures you
it's like 90%, I think, right?
Yeah, if they really bury them.
Where's your head at?
I'm feeling good.
Oh.
I feel like the offense is still a little lackluster a bit, but they're catching the Rangers at the right time. I think that's the important part. And I know you're worried a little bit about that, but we'll see. It's a 4-game series, and I think they at least split. The Jays pitching staff has been so good. So they'll split it at least. Guaranteed.
Yeah.
Lock.
Yeah. Oh, please don't do that. We're going to get into locks and what we talked about on Friday on our NFL show here at the Homestand Podcast. Okay, so you had the 49ers minus 2.5, that was your lock pick. Congratulations.
That was nice and easy.
They come out and look like maybe the best team in football against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
Poor Steelers.
No, I mean, there's a few teams that I think that were like, public teams that were getting a lot of backing that I just was like, why? Like, I like the Steelers. I think their defense is fantastic, but they're not on the level of the 49ers, man. Not a chance. And like Kenneth Pickwell throwing picks. No, Kenny Pickett was not good yesterday either. And yeah, I think the Steelers will bounce back. They'll be fine. And like an average team in the NFL, maybe
Probably.
a fringe playoff team, but maybe not in that AFC. The AFC is so crazy. But the 49ers are just so good, man. So good. And it's a testament to them. Like, they were so close to making a deep run in the playoffs last year with nobody at quarterback, playing Christian McCaffrey in the Wildcat.
That's right.
When everybody got hurt. So I think Purdy's healthy. He looked good yesterday. He looked fine. Not elite, but somebody that can game manage that team and do well. And I think that like the 49ers, to me, again, I said it on Friday's show, definitely I think make the NFC Championship this year.
Well, that was the only true question mark, right? Was Brock Purdy. And
Sure.
What the hell is this guy going to do? Mr. Irrelevant. Can he recapture what he did in the playoffs? How's that elbow doing? And he answered all the questions. Everything is fine, and he's going to be able to lead this team.
Well, again, the elbow in the NFL for a quarterback, you really use the elbow. It's in more of the shoulder to the throwing motion, right? So I wasn't too concerned. Obviously, you don't know how an arm is going to react to certain things, but I wasn't too concerned about it coming back. He just needed time off the heel. So
yeah, he's the man. Listen, that team's fantastic. Bosa looks great. McCaffrey with one of the plays maybe of the weekend. Ayuk was unstoppable. Yeah, literally unstoppable.
Making some blocks downfield too. Yeah.
So that's enough praise for your pick, your winning pick. We got to talk about your Titans money line pick. That was the gut feeling pick,
close.
Right? I have a feeling this team might win. You went with Titans, and maybe the worst quarterbacking performance of the weekend goes to your boy Ryan Tannehill.
There's a few of those too.
Holy smokes.
A few of those. That he was bad. He was bad, and there's not much that the Titans can do right now. Malik Willis, not a lot of quarterback experience. Will Levis was the emergency quarterback for them. He wasn't even like technically active, so they don't really believe in him either, which is sad because they just drafted him. So, but yeah, Tannehill was bad. The worst for me was the O-line. Like, I think they allowed 3 sacks, and they were only pressured like 7.5% of the time or something. So like, they weren't even getting. It was just like constantly like pressure, but like not like deep pressure, but just like the O-line couldn't handle the lack of pressure that the Saints were bringing, and they still got to Tannehill 3 times. He threw 3 picks. He looked terrible. DeAndre Hopkins looked good when Tannehill could find him. I think 7 catches for 65 yards. I was okay with the pick. I mean, they covered. I just was a little too ballsy and went with the money line.
Take the spread.
You know me, right. Man. I always pushes that little extra step. And
I enjoyed that game. It was really physical. I mean, that was an old school football game. Saints win that 16-15. I thought Derek Carr looked pretty good. 305, a touchdown, interception. I mean, listen, for first game with the Saints, I think the Saints are going to be okay. One of my locks, we'll get into, is a Monday nighter, obviously, the Jets, and we'll get into that. But my other pick, which was the I have a feeling pick, Patriots +4 against the Philadelphia Eagles. Really close. Listen, I thought they were playing pretty well. Brady comes out at halftime, does his speech, starts running up and down the field. He's doing like the hoo-ha. Yeah. He's got his jersey on. I'm like, this is perfect. They're going to bounce back. They come back. They go for the 2-point conversion to make it a 3-point game. Gets called back. That would have been the cover. 4 points. What a heartbreaker.
How awful did Brady look as just like his appearance? He's looking gaunt, man. He's looking unhealthy.
The hair looks great.
Oh, well,
but he looks like he's losing too much weight. Yeah, he looks really thin.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's just him trying to lose some weight.
He's got to do like what a lot of former athletes do once they're done.
Get fat?
No. Well, either get fat or get on the roids, man.
Why would he get on the side?
Because just to keep up appearances. A lot of people like to look.
That's funny you thought that. I thought he looked a little rough too.
Yeah, he did, man.
Well, who knows what happened the night before?
No, hey. I mean,
listen, he's hanging out with Bob Kraft. He's back in Foxborough. He doesn't pay for a drink. In Boston.
Yeah.
So who knows what went down? But he had his kid there. Maybe he didn't get too crazy.
How many times do you think him and Bob Kraft kissed?
Oh my God! Did you see that? It was like, I don't know, like a mafia or something. Like he's talking to the Godfather. Kiss on the cheek here and there.
That out, man.
Oh my God! There's a lot of love there between him and Bobby Kraft.
There should be. There's a lot of rings there.
Well, I thought, listen, Brady's going to be in the building. They're going to at least cover, which they almost did. I have a bunch of friends who are Eagles fans, and they're upset today. They won, but they're disappointing.
They were up
they're disappointed
16-0,
how they won,
right? And I had a money line parlay with the Eagles.
Of course you did.
And the book that I bet at, you get a cash out after when they're up 17 points. So I was like, come on, man, just cash it out.
Yeah.
So it was a lot closer than I would have liked it to be. But you know me, I don't cash out early. You can't.
Well, you got to look at those in sports books. The Thursday nighter, I bet the Lions money line because it was on DraftKings. Yeah. Once the team goes up 7 points, you win your bet. I'm like, this is beautiful. Plus money, and it hit. So. And
again, I think the Patriots, Mac Jones, not bad. But their defense is fantastic. Again, holding the Eagles to 25 points as a team. And again, I think one of those was a defensive score by Darius Slay, right? So, and again, it's sort of like an overreaction from your friends probably. And again, we'll get into overreactions, underreactions, all that stuff. But the Eagles will be fine. And I think the Patriots are only 2-point dogs this week against the Dolphins, who looked pretty solid.
Well, it must be nice to be upset when your team wins. I mean, just talk to Bengals fans.
Super Bowl hangover too, right?
How about the Bengals? Just put up 3 points against Deshaun Watson and the Browns. Browns defense and O-line look really good. Yeah. But Deshaun Watson, what do you think?
Not good. And
I think that's get there.
I don't know.
No?
I was thinking, again, the Bengals defense is all right. I think top 10 in the league, something like that.
Yeah.
So not elite, but good. And it was just he's underthrowing everything. His depth of target we talked about last week dropped 2 yards from when he was with the Houston Texans to when he's at the Browns, and just these guys like Deshaun Watson, Daniel Jones, Kenny Pickett. Again, Deshaun Watson looked like he was elite a few years ago, but now you're lumping him in with these guys that are up and comers and guys that throw for 170 yards a game. It's not good. And I think I have some worries to have a Browns team that's that good on the defensive line, a pretty good offensive line, and a very good running back, and you could be pissing away with Deshaun Watson back there, but you can't do anything similar to the Broncos. You locked him into this long contract, guaranteed money, $290 million, 7 years or whatever it is. You're just sort of stuck with him, so you got to hope that he can, manage. And
think he'll be. Listen, it's week 1. You're going to get horrible quarterback play, considering a lot of these QBs don't even really play in the preseason. Yeah. I mean, look what happened. You see Kenny Pickett, who was the darling of preseason, and has a horrible game. Right? It happens.
You're playing backups there, but
listen, if Deshaun Watson makes more of those throws, instead of 24-3, it's 40-3.
Oh, 100%.
That's how lopsided that game was.
And I try not. I would just like to say I try not to preach overreaction, especially in week 1. You don't really get a true sample of these teams until a few weeks in, 3-4 weeks probably, and then you start to see what they are. The Bengals started 0-2 last year, and people were starting to write them off.
Right.
I'm not worried about it. The Bengals bad weather game against a team that Joe Burrow just can't seem to beat, like we talked about on Friday as well.
1-4.
And now we are 1-5, I think. Yeah. And just not a good performance. And he could still be dealing with a calf injury too, and that D-line pressured him a lot. I think the Bengals will be just fine and competing for the AFC title as well, if not a Super Bowl. So.
Some of the week 1 betting trends: favorites go 7-8 against the spread, 9-6 straight up. Dogs obviously 8-7 against the spread. The unders, Sean. The unders 11-4.
Interesting.
I know, and you're an under guy.
I'd say yes more than over guy, just because I tend to fade the public, and the public likes to see those overs happen, right?
Because who the hell wants to cheer for an under? That's why.
You know me. I'm a contrarian guy, so I wasn't on any totals yesterday. To be honest, I was on a few spreads, a few money lines. I didn't really touch too many totals. I like a total for tonight's game. We'll get into that later, but. It's an interesting trend and something that to monitor, but I don't know if it'll happen. It just it takes some time for the offenses to get in sync. Again, a lot of new quarterbacks, some new wide receivers come in. Defenses were pretty good yesterday. Some bad weather yesterday as well. So a lot of things that would tend track to the under, but I'm not worried about that as a long-term trend either.
Okay, before we get into our Monday night preview and who we like, you obviously know who I like already. It's the New York Jets. I don't know if you have any props or anything. Do you? You got a parlay?
I've got.
Okay, so we'll hang on for Sean's parlay. Let's go through. Let's go through some of my reactions, and you dub them an overreaction or appropriate or wherever you want to say.
Okay.
So let's start. Tyreek Hill is still the guy. and will hit 2,000 receiving. Let's not
Damn.
forget, he had 11 catches for 215 with 3 touchdowns yesterday against the Chargers, which was a fantastic game, by the way. Maybe the game of the weekend so far.
I would say you're bang on. I don't think that's an over or an underreaction. I think that he could definitely flirt with 2,000 yards. Will he get that threshold? For the sake of me making a decision, I will say yes, because sometimes I come on here and be like, I don't know, flip-flop.
Yeah, no flip-flop.
But I'm saying I think he'll get to 2,000 yards. Again, this is a hell of a pace you're on now, but he looked so good, man. Just flip it downfield.
Oh.
Whether he's doing the slants or whether he's going the go route, like he just looked really good yesterday. Tua, man, he could be MVP if he can stay healthy. And again, I think he was in the conversation last year to be MVP before he got hurt. And man, he looked good. He looked good yesterday, and it helps to have those stud wide receivers with Waddle and Hill. So I'm going to say yes, Hill makes 2,000 yards.
Interesting you say that. My next take, reaction. Tua for MVP.
Oh, okay. We didn't talk about these.
Listen,
so
when you pass for 466 yards, 3 touchdowns, you look that good. Your O-line they didn't touch him yesterday. The Chargers didn't touch him.
And they got a good defense.
If they don't if he doesn't get touched and he's not getting sacked, and there's obviously he's going to get hit at some point in the season. Yeah. It just depends whether or not it's going to be a concussion, if he's going to be out. Hopefully not. And with anything that you talk about when it comes to MVP or how well teams do, it comes down to if this team stays healthy, if this player stays healthy. So throw away those ifs.
Yep.
Based on what we saw yesterday against the Chargers in that fantastic performance with Tyreek Hill, 466 yards, 3 touchdowns, his demeanor, the way that he played, how he dragged the team back to win that game. Yeah. That's an MVP performance.
Yeah. Again, I don't like agreeing with you normally, but I'm going to agree with that too. I think he definitely has what it takes to be MVP. They have the pieces in place. They have a decent enough run game to set up play action. They have good receivers that can, again, stretch the field both vertically and horizontally. You've got, reliable hands too. It doesn't just you have to catch the ball. He's got one of the best deep balls in the game, so that can catch you yards. Just again, Tyreek Hill had a couple of big gains there for over 30 or 40 yards. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me.
Yak.
But and then you've got Mike McDaniel too, man. Seemingly great offensive mind, right? Comes from the Kyle Shanahan system. Really loved what he did there at the end of the first half. They had 9 seconds left in the first half, and they receive the ball, so they're on their own 25, and he decides to do a couple plays. Why not? And then stupid J.C. Jackson commits pass interference and allows the Dolphins to set up and kick a field goal, which is just a bonehead play by the defender. But that's the kind of mentality that you need to win football games, which can help you get MVP votes if your team is winning the conference, winning your division. That definitely helps. And then it can lead to more points, more touchdowns, more yards, and Tua's got the great skill set. It just depends on if he can stay healthy. So I'm going to agree with you on that one too.
Man, how are you feeling if you're at home and you're Patrick Mahomes and you're watching football? Because he's watching football.
Oh yeah,
and he's watching Tyreek Hill, and he's having flashbacks of Kadarius Toney dropping those balls and Kelsey on the sideline.
Even after all the games yesterday, I did my top 3 surprises and letdowns and lowlights, highlights, and he was my bottom 3rd low light, just him
Tony
not being able to catch the ball. After all that football, he was still stuck out to me as something that really disappointed me about week 1. And
it's a lone game on Thursday night, all eyes on it. It's easy to not forget what happened.
And again, not to make an overreaction out of it, because again, you can't, but I think the Chiefs will be just fine. Tony will be okay if as long as you get those chances. Again, Kelsey will draw defenders away, so he'll be a bit more open. And he'll secure some catches. I'm not worried about Tony. Again, somebody that needs to stay healthy. That guy's injured all the time too.
All the time, which is a big problem. Okay, my next one, we kind of touched on it already, but the 49ers are the best team in football.
Ooh. That's tough.
The only thing that was holding them back for being the best team in football, I mean, not just to me, but to a lot of people, is the quarterback position, the guy who throws the football
thrower.
Yeah, the football thrower. Brock Purdy. What the hell is Brock Purdy?
Yeah.
Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick in the draft. How can all the rest of the teams be wrong, but the 49ers be right?
Man.
And they may just be right. Who else has Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Nick Bosa? That's George Kittle. George Kittle wasn't even a factor against the Steelers.
No.
And they blew them away.
Yeah, he's George Kittle too.
Could cut you off, but a lot of people are saying, hey, the Cowboys look pretty good. But that performance was great. I think that's kind of my next take that we'll get into. But the 49ers, there's a full package.
Yeah.
If those 3 or 4 players are playing week in and week out, they're gonna win more games than they lose, most definitely.
Slight disagree.
Oh,
Very slight. I do think they're a top 3 team, probably number 2 on my power rankings that don't exist.
Who's one?
The
Chiefs?
Chiefs.
Still.
Just a team that just does it every year and has done it consistently. Mahomes did it last year on a one leg, essentially.
With a healthy Kelsey.
That's again an asterisk, and they need to settle this Chris Jones thing stat too.
That's true.
You can't have, and again, I want to say obviously Mahomes is your best player, but you can't have your second best offensive player and your best defensive player out for a prolonged period of time and still be successful. I do think that the Chiefs will be fine. I like them to beat the Jaguars this week, but as long as Kelsey comes back. But yeah, you're right. The 49ers are real solid on all sides of the ball. Great coach too in Shanahan. I wouldn't, again, slight disagree, but that's only because we've seen the Chiefs do it so often.
Yeah, it's a big problem. The Chiefs, I think they really do have issues over there. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Okay, all right.
I don't want to get into that conversation. It's too early. It's too early.
Too early.
It really is too early for that conversation. The next one and the final one. The Cowboys 40-0 win tells us nothing about the Cowboys outside of Micah Parsons, his defensive god.
Disagree. Again, I think the Cowboys are in that same kind of echelon as the Chiefs and the 49ers for me this year. I think they're a top 5 team. I think, giving Tony Pollard the bulk of the running back work, that defense is a top 3 unit I think it was last year as well.
Yeah.
Dak's got another weapon in Brandon Cooks, new tight end there, and Jake Ferguson. Again, Michael Gallup is a 3. Like that's just a good problem to have. So it tells you a lot, again, because again, the Giants were a playoff team last year, and people were still sort of high on them this year. I wasn't. Again, the NFC's so weak. I don't think the Giants are a bad team. I think you get off to a rough start there. A block kick for a touchdown, interception for a touchdown, a couple field goals, and you're looking at the scoreboard and you're like, how are we down 19-0? And it just snowballs from there.
The game was done
right?
so fast.
But Daniel Jones, what he finished with 104 yards passing or something.
He was a non-factor.
And then they brought in Tyrod Taylor at the end of the game, whatever. But in a blowout like that, you at least gotta show up a little bit. Get some points. Get some dignity.
Yeah.
And, that'll be Brian Daboll's probably the worst coaching experience he's had so far. And we'll see how they rebound. But yeah, no, it tells me a lot about this Dallas Cowboys team that comes in there, wins a tough divisional game on the road, and just destroys them. And it tells you a lot about the Giants too. Again, I think they overachieved last year. The Vikings, I think, overachieved last year, and they got beat by the Buccaneers, right? So there's some teams that people seem to love that I'm not fully on board with, and we'll see how I didn't predict the Buccaneers to beat the Vikings, but the Vikings to me are a bit soft. The Giants are a bit soft. I don't know what the Titans were doing yesterday, but they got to figure that out because again, I picked them to win that division, and that's still wide open to me. But there's a lot of teams there that I think just need to prove it, that they are consistent enough to make the playoffs year in and year out. The Giants to me are a fringe team, and they didn't prove it to me last night.
They need a quarterback. I don't know who that is, but they need one. It's not him. It's not Ryan Tannehill.
Well, yeah, no, sorry, but the Giants, it's not Daniel Jones either. Both teams have question marks at quarterback, and Daniel Jones to me, again, like I said, needs to find that next level, needs to improve upon the best season he's had as a starter, which he had last year. He needs to do that again this year, and I don't think he's got that in him. Right.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens the rest of the way. Let's talk about Monday Night Football. What a game. Honestly, what a game we got going. You have, the new New York Jets with Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. Week 1, Monday Night Football in New York against the divisional rivals in the Buffalo Bills. The return of Breece Hall, that partnership in the backfield with Dalvin Cook. You have the bromance with him and Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson, and who knows what's going to come out of that. Can Josh Allen and Diggs figure it out against New York? It's 9/11, September 11th, and I talked about this on Friday. That's going to be a factor because the emotions are going to be running high for both sides. They're going to be honoring the families and victims ahead of the game, and I think that all plays into what's going to happen tonight, and the Jets probably taking this one down.
Did you bet the never forget parlay on DraftKings?
I can't believe that's a real thing. Can you tell the people about that? I couldn't believe it when you told me, actually.
I can't believe it either.
The never forget parlay.
It's insensitive as all hell.
Well, yeah.
You bet the Yankees money line,
Right.
the Mets money line, and the Jets money line is like plus 650 or something like that, and that's your never forget parlay to remember 9/11.
Come on, now what are we doing?
That's
Like,
honestly embarrassing.
It is embarrassing.
It's
ridiculous.
embarrassing
And listen, that will not hit anyway.
No, not a chance.
Not a chance in hell. The Yankees are horrible. So are the Mets. The Yankees, by the way, get no hit for 10 innings and win the game. How's that happen? Anyway, I don't know what can happen to the Yankees. But yeah, please don't bet that parlay.
Yeah, no. Yeah, but back to your question. I last week I was Bills. I was on the Bills. I was like, I just think they have a bit more experience. There's going to be some kinks with the Jets offense at first. And I looked back and I was like, man, like last year, the Jets and the Bills split the season series.
Jets were a good team.
I think they won 20-17 in week 9,
Yep.
and they lost in week 14, like 20-12 or something like that. And that was with Zach Wilson and Mike White as their quarterbacks. And like they had okay performances, to be honest. And I know the Bills defense was a little banged up at the time, but Von Miller's still going to miss this game. That's huge for the Bills, not to be able to pressure somebody like Aaron Rodgers. And just that mindset of Aaron Rodgers, that winning mindset, the guy who's been there, the guy who, basically like similar to like a Peyton Manning and a Tom Brady, somebody that basically can call his own plays, seen every defense in the world, what I mean, can notice blitzes coming out of different spots. Like, yeah, I was all week last week, I was like, Bills. And now I'm coming around. Jets.
Oh boy, here we go.
Jets.
Well, there's going to be a little bit more added motivation going back to the September 11th thing. So the Jets head coach, Robert Saleh, he has ties to what went down on September 11th.
Oh, okay.
His brother, David, he was training to be a financial advisor for Morgan Stanley, and he was on the 61st floor of the second tower when that stuff went down. Luckily, he was able to get away before the building collapsed. At the time, Robert Saleh was 22. Recently out of college, and he hated his job as a bank credit analyst. A few months later, he decided to leave. But he said this, he goes, sitting in a cubicle doing a job I didn't want to be doing, my heart wasn't in it. He goes, is this what I really want out of life? He missed football, ended up quitting that job and got into football and kind of went around everywhere, as we know. Yeah. And now is landed with the Jets. So can you only imagine how he'll be feeling in the tunnel that night with everything going on?
I'll be definitely watching, hopefully with you later tonight, and
maybe
we'll just like the amount of tears that'll like it'll be a crazy scene, man. And like even as like a viewer who has like we're Canadian, like, and obviously we were affected, but like not the same level to a lot of the people in that area, especially we can't even fathom that. But like it'll be emotional for us to watch, like just to remember that. And again, a long time ago, but it still obviously has an impact on our daily lives and everybody, and
change the world.
Watching people during the anthem and during those ceremonies will be tough. The players, the fans, but yeah, we're in for a hell of a football game tonight. I think it'll be a very good game. I don't know if it can rival that Dolphins-Chargers game from yesterday. That was intense and a lot of fun. I think this is a different kind of football game, like a playoff type grinding atmosphere, defense, a lot of like 3 and outs. So I think it's going to be a hell of a game. I'm really looking
I haven't been so excited for a game in a very long time. I was excited. You know what? I was really excited for that Chiefs-Lions Thursday nighter.
The game one is always.
This is different. This is definitely big game feel.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So 9/11. I can't believe that was 22 years ago now, and Robert Saleh has ties to that. So hopefully for him and the Jets, they get the job done. Okay, let's get to our picks now, though. So I'm going money line, which I mentioned on Friday. I'm going to stick to it. There's no reason that I should be going it either way.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the spread right now? It's at 2.
Yeah.
I would even take the Jets +2, considering I think they're going to win -110. Bills -2. Overs 45. I'm not touching the total because I don't really know what to expect out of this game. If it's going to be a shootout, one-sided, or just kind of be like the Saints Titans type of game. I don't see that happening.
I'll have a couple of bets. I think I'll bet the money line separately, like with you, kiss of death style.
Don't do it.
I'll tell you on that. I do have a same game parlay as well. Let me know what you think, because again, you just said that you don't like the total, but Jets money line, okay, Under 44.5 points. So we revisited last season. Obviously, it's different season, different players for the most part. Bringing in Aaron Rodgers. But
you got the total at 44.5. It's 45 now.
An alt.
Ah, gotcha.
Just to spice up, get some better odds for me, right? Because again, I could see a 24-20. That's good for me, right?
Yeah.
24-21, not as good, but I don't expect both teams to get over 20 points here.
So Jets money line.
Under 44.5.
Okay.
Alt total. Josh Allen over 6.5 rushing attempts. So he had 10 the first time they played last year, and 9 the second time they played. They're going to get a lot of pressure on him, I think, so that'll flush him out of the pocket. And if you want to bet that solo, I like that too, but it's minus 160 is the juice. I don't really like the juice, but I think he hits that comfortably. I think he gets to at least 9. And that gets you to plus 750. Which I like. I like a good plus 750.
That's a good number,
right?
man.
That's
it
a good
also
number.
depends on how much you're throwing on that bad boy.
Well, I want a unit. I'm throwing a unit.
What's a unit?
I bet responsibly.
You can put a bean on it?
No,
100 bananas?
I got $20 on it.
Okay, that's still good.
Yeah. And then
please bet responsibly. By the way,
obviously you got to bet responsibly.
Yeah. I'm still responsible, but it's still ridiculous sometimes too.
So then, what I also like too is I'm looking at some secondary receiving options. I looked at how Diggs does against Sauce, and it wasn't fantastic.
No.
But I'm actually going to look on the other side of the ball with somebody that Aaron Rodgers is familiar with. I'm going to go Allen Lazard over 36.5 receiving yards. Doesn't seem like a lot for somebody who can stretch the field a little bit, and should see 7 targets, something like that. I expect them to throw a little bit here, and if you add that, it's plus 1,600.
I like it.
Wow.
I do like it.
All
Listen.
Right. And I tried to, me, I even looked at adding to I'm like, Sean, what are you doing? That's
plus
1,600 is enough.
You can't, that's the problem. You can't get greedy.
I know.
It's like when you have a plus money pick. Like if you're betting the Jets money line, you don't got to do anything else. You're getting plus money with the pick. Just bet the Jets money line. You don't got to add this guy and that guy. I don't like, I'm horrible with props when it comes to the NFL. But if there's one guy that I'm huge on, it's Garrett Wilson. His receiving yards prop, it's 67.5.
Oh, okay.
Receiving yards minus 125. It's juiced up a bit.
Yeah.
But that's Aaron Rodgers' guy. I know he might lean on some of the veterans, so the guys he knows, like Lazard.
Cobb.
He might, right? He might. But I think Garrett Wilson's going to be his guy. Those two love each other.
Yeah. No, it'll be interesting to see how they line up. Like if
what's his reception at?
6.5?
Over 5.5 reception.
Okay.
Minus 135. I like that too. That's juiced up to the gills though. Minus 135, but I like it.
Yeah, the props, the prop market, they really focus on it now and juice it up a little bit.
Because everyone's jumping on it.
They start doing that with the teaser market now too. Just because people they could finding different ways to find value, right? And the market's got to react. I don't mind either of those. I like the lower number, and I think a game that I'm predicting to be a bit lower scoring. I think 40, 41 points, something like that.
Under the number
20-17, nice little 37. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have a couple more bets as the night goes on, but that's my same game parlay. If you like the plus 750, that's Jets money line under 44.5 points. Josh Allen over 6.5 rushing attempts. If you want to get a little crazy and add Allen Lazard to get it to plus 1,600, that's over 36.5 receiving yards. I like that too, but really looking forward to the game.
All right, I'm going Patriots. Jets money line, as I mentioned.
Yep.
Screw it. Let's go Garrett Wilson. Over his receiving yards. Garrett Wilson. Over his 5.5 receptions. Rodgers and Wilson getting it done today in New York against the Bills. And then the reaction on Tuesday will be, best team in the world. But if they lose, all the hype for no reason. They can't even beat the Bills.
That's why I love the NFL, man.
It's just the overreactions are incredible.
Yes.
But they're they're in game. As I'm watching the game, it's quarter by quarter with me.
Yeah.
It's like, this team's great. This team sucks. This guy's horrible. Wow, this guy's actually pretty good.
I'm friends with a few Patriots fans who were just crumbling when they were down 16-0 to the Eagles yesterday. Well, man, and then you said, you had fans who weren't happy that they won. The Eagles won 25-19 or 25-20. Sorry, so you can't. It's tough to win.
Yeah.
It's tough to win.
It is tough to win. Shawn McCormick, thank you very much, buddy. It's been a good time. I'll be back on Wednesday with more Homestand Sports Podcast. You'll be back on the show on Friday. So every Friday, me, Shawn McCormick, and Justin Pooney will be doing an NFL that week preview. So next week will be week 2. We'll be talking about the games, giving away our picks, and making fun of Justin for one of his picks that he made on Friday. Don't forget to download the podcast. Leave a rating. It actually really does help. 5 stars, preferably. Right, Sean?
Well, 5 stars is the only way to go, man.
5-star frog splash, like
little
our boy,
RVD?
little RVD.
Yeah.
You can get the podcast anywhere: Spotify, Apple, Wherever you get your podcasts, that's where Homestand Sports will be. Also, we're also throwing this up on YouTube. If you want to watch the video form of me and Shawn here talking in studio at the Homestand Sports Studio, you can do that. Don't forget to like that video. And as I mentioned, we'll be back on Wednesday with another Homestand Sports podcast. Thanks for watching. I'm Albert Vartanian.